So it's only March of 2022, but Tom Ford has been very busy releasing new fragrances. And here we actually see a collection of rose fragrances. They're known as Rose de Chine, Rose de Russie, and Rose d'Amalfi, and they're inspired by different parts of the world. Well, in today's video, we're going to be doing a review of Rose d'Amalfi. I'm very excited to share my thoughts with you, so make sure to stay tuned. Begin this video and I give you my thoughts of Rose d'Amalfi, the brand new Tom Ford private blend fragrance, and I also tell you how this fragrance performs, how long it lasts, what it smells like, any comparisons that can be made, so on and so forth. I do want to start things off by mentioning that if you are a fan of fragrance related content, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to enable all notifications by clicking on the bell icon, and of course give this video a thumbs up if you take something of value from today's video. So here we have a fragrance that opens up with some really nice, sweet, yet spicy notes. So we have a combination of almond and heliotrope, and that was the first thing that I smelled that really made me think, this is going to be a trip. I'm going to enjoy this one. It definitely is along the lines of the types of fragrances that I find myself really enjoying. But then there's also this bright and zesty introduction with the bergamot. There's a little bit of Italian mandarin, if I'm remembering correctly. But of course, rose is really resting at the heart of this fragrance. So it is going to be a floral perfume. In the case of this fragrance, I believe it is a soliflor. There aren't any other floral ingredients kind of contributing to that floral bouquet, if you will, that you're going to find in the heart. And I'm also, throughout the course of this video, going to try at least a little bit to tell you how it differs from the other fragrances within this trio of releases. But let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. So right in the opening of this fragrance, you are going to get a lot of really lush rose. So the rose in here is very natural smelling, but it's not playing on its own, right? So there's a lot of team players within this composition that kind of contribute to that overall vibe that you're going to get from this fragrance. Now, as I mentioned before, you have that almond in here, you have the heliotrope, and heliotrope in essence is a floral ingredient. So I know I had mentioned that this is a soliflor, but we can't deny the existence and the presence of heliotrope within this composition, but it's really the rose that takes center stage. Now, as soon as you spray it on, you are going to detect something really warm about it, and I presume that that warmth is coming from that almond and heliotrope combination. Now, almond is a smell that I personally love, and whenever I think of almond and or heliotrope, I think of course of Etros heliotrope, I think of Dulce Acqua by Profumum Roma, and this does kind of go in the direction of those fragrances. It's a little bit powdery, but it's not as sweet as those fragrances, and it's not as pronounced on the almond. So you are going to get mostly rose from this fragrance, and even in the case of the citrus that you get in here, I think I do get more bergamot than orange, but even that's short-lived, right? It's going to last about 20 minutes just to give you that initial burst of freshness, and then it does very quickly dry down into something that is more so about the rose and some of the other varying elements, and not necessarily those volatile citrus top notes. Now, there's pink pepper in this as well, and that's also kind of adding to that spicy kick, but pepper can have a rosy smell as well. So I feel like that rosy vibe that you get from the pink pepper kind of combines with the rose that is in the heart to add to the realism of the fragrance, but also to join hand in hand with the almond for a little bit of that spicy effect that I think is really nice and really agreeable. Now, in terms of spiciness, this is nowhere near as dark as Rose de Russie. So if you're looking for something that smells a bit more on the darker side of things, Rose de Russie is really the choice to go with. And then if you're looking for something that smells very vegetal, very aromatic, very herbal, you should go with Rose de Chine. Now, this one is actually the warm yet naturally floral and slightly sweet fragrance from this lineup. And I know with Rose Prick, obviously, that's another fragrance that was released, you know, in the past by Tom Ford. That kind of goes in its own direction too. So one thing that I love is that now, being as though there are like 5 or 6 rose fragrances, I'm also including Noir de Noir in that list, none of them are repetitive or redundant. So I can't really say that, you know, 2 fragrances within those 5 or 6 in the lineup smell close to one another, certainly not identical. So I like what Tom Ford did here in releasing fragrances that, yes, in the heart you are going to find rose, but each one tends to go in its own direction, which is really, really nice. Now, in terms of the overall vibe that's created here, I do want to say that this fragrance does come across both casual and formal. I think Rose de Russie is probably the most formal one of them all. Rose de Chine, I think, is also a nice combination of formal and casual. Perfectly unisex, and I think that's the case with all of them, although because of that heaviness, that slight smoky quality from Rose de Russie, I can see people kind of arguing that that might be a little bit more on the masculine side. And yes, in time, I do plan on dedicating individual reviews to both of those other rose fragrances within this collection. But this one is kind of on the youthful side of things. It's rosy without being an overdose of rose, if that makes sense. And it doesn't smell old school. It doesn't smell dated in any way. It still smells very modern, very contemporary, very easy to wear, very easy to pull off. And it has a very strong, agreeable element about it. As a matter of fact, if I were to make a recommendation for people and they said, look, I had my eye on these 3 new rose-based releases from Tom Ford, which one do you recommend that I check out first? I think this is definitely the easiest one to recommend. There's nothing daring about it. There's nothing avant-garde about it. It doesn't really push too many envelopes. It's just a very nicely done rose-based scent with a very warm texture about it. And that addition of the almond and the heliotrope is done so nicely. Just, you know, they happen to be some of my favorite notes in perfume. So definitely the one I would recommend you check out. And with that, I'll probably follow up with my review of Rose de Chine very soon. So I'm hoping you enjoy that one. I'm hoping you're enjoying this video here. But let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, this is a fairly unique fragrance. I mean, I've smelled many other rose-based fragrances, so I can't say it's 100% unique to other rose-based fragrances that I've tried, but I do like the novelty that is presented within that rose and almond combination. So I really do enjoy that. In terms of the smell, like I said before, it's very agreeable. This is definitely the safest and easiest one to recommend from all of the rose offerings, so very well done in that regard. Longevity on this one is about 8 hours. So given the concentration, I think that that falls right within average territory, which is really good. Definitely gets you through a workday. In terms of the projection was great for the first 45 minutes to an hour of application. It did start to sit a little bit closer to the skin, right around that 5.5 to 6 hour mark. But the performance on this one is definitely above average, average to above average, I would say. In terms of the versatility, you can dress this one up, you can dress it down, perfectly unisex. The rose will appeal to somebody who's a little bit more mature. And then I also feel like the sweetness that is borrowed from the heliotrope and some of those ambery nuances in the base will appeal to somebody who's a little bit younger as well. And in terms of seasons, I can see this one doing well in all seasons, and so I do give it that for its versatility. The rose is perfect for the springtime. The warmer elements are perfect for the colder weather. And in terms of the presentation, I do like the subtle variation in the color of each bottle. Of course, I have the travel set package deal here, and so the presentation for the 50 mils is actually much nicer in my opinion. You do have that differentiation. You can tell which one is which. So my final verdict is, if you are a fan of rose-based fragrances and you're looking to try a rose-based fragrance that is not 100% about the rose, goes in a few different directions, has its own unique personality, and you appreciate fragrances that can become a little warm and sweet and ambery, definitely check out Rose d'Amalfi. Also has that nice freshness in the opening on account of the bergamot. So There you have it, ladies and gents. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. That was my review of Rose d'Amalfi by Tom Ford, part of the Private Blend line. If you own or have tried this fragrance, let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Please don't forget to support the channel by subscribing to it. If you enjoyed this video, hit the bell icon, give it a thumbs up. Thank you all so much for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.